Okay, welcome back. We are here again as part of our video training series on the new EFI ColorProof XF RIP for Epson. I'm Mark, and welcome back, Larry.
Thanks, Mark. Good to be here.
As some of you know, this video you're about to watch is an important one. It is the video where we are going to launch the EFI RIP for the first time. We are going to create a workflow and an output device that will be compliant with the Grayscale 2006 coded 1v2 specification from the Ideal Alliance. In fact, as of today, we just received certification from the Ideal Alliance for the workflow that you're about to see us build. So this is a good example of how the EFI RIP and our output device, our printer, and our ink and media can be certified for Grayscale 2006 1v2.
Yeah, that's with our standard proofing paper 240. And in the proofing edition SKU, there's actually a full roll of 24-inch standard proofing paper in the box. So
That's
you're ready to go.
So right out of the box, they have the media they need to be certified for Grayscale. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to run the RIP for the first time. The first thing is to note is down here at the dock, if you have not yet seen the RIP install video, you need to do that. This video is shot right after we finished doing the installation. So watch that video first, but we've already installed the product and it is now running live. We can go ahead and run the client software for the first time. And just a couple notes here. This RIP was run once before on this computer. But Larry, I understand that for the first time on a brand new PC when this is run, they will get an admin login screen, right?
Right. You're going to get a dialog box looking for login. And the defaults to start, the user would be admin, all lowercase. The password would be admin, all lowercase, and the basically server address, if you're running the client on the same PC as the server as we are here, then you can just type in all one word, all lowercase, local host, and that'll get you to the stage we are at right now.
Okay, very cool. So, you know, EFI has developed a new setup wizard to help make the installation of a workflow and an output device, our new Stylus Pro 9900 in this case, easier to do. And it works great, by the way. But I am going to show you a different way of doing it, that maybe it's a little harder, but it gives you more detail along the way. And you know, Larry is actually the guy here at Epson America that is responsible for training and certifying all of our dealers on how to use this product. And so he'll be going over that in his own classes in much more detail than we are here in this video. But I'm actually going to hit continue and just select a default workflow and just say finished. Because I'm going to do it the hard way, Larry.
Okay.
Right? I'm not going to go through the wizard.
Well, you could actually have done it harder. You could have canceled the window and then had to make the default workflow from start.
Okay, so you know what?
So you did take one step from
All right, so I'll delete it and I'll start from scratch here. Hold on a second. All right, so making it the worst case scenario, this is how I would do it. Now, this RIP is really made, and it's an excellent EFI, and the changes they've made is just awesome. And, you know, I got to tell you, the guys in the talent and the engineers over at EFI have made one of the coolest products we've ever seen for RIP workflows. I mean, the idea of handling users' workflows and output devices gives me a lot of flexibility to try to set up this RIP to handle virtually any workflow I want. And as of right now, of course, we're going to create a workflow that is certified by the Ideal Alliance for the Grayscale standard going to a new Stylus Pro 9900.
As a trainer on this, the only caution I have in this process is when you start with no workflow, you're highlighted and you're working on the EFI linearization workflow right now. And that's actually one you don't want to touch. You never want to modify any of the settings for the linearization workflow. So just be aware of that.
And I can never figure out why EFI even has that here. You don't even want to touch it.
Yeah,
Don't even do it.
It's basically set up for no color management, and that's where when you create linearizations and ICC profiles, which we'll do in another video, you need that no color managed workflow.
Gotcha.
So that's what it's there for.
So this is pretty easy. We're going to create a new workflow, and then we're going to modify the settings for that workflow so that it's compliant with the Grayscale standards from the Ideal Alliance. I can create a new workflow by right-clicking in this area and just select new workflow. Of course, I can also come up here and define a new workflow by clicking on this button. I'm going to go ahead and select the default setting. There's a lot of pre-done templates in here, but I'm going to go ahead and just select the default one and start from scratch. So here we have a workflow. The first thing I'm going to do is come over here. You notice that when I click on an output device, the area here changes. This is where we're going to be making all of our detailed settings for output devices. If I click on workflows, you can see all the information here changes. I'm not yet going to turn and link any of this stuff on yet because I'm going to be adding this stuff as we go. So obviously the first row up here is your top menu, and then there's sub-menus. First tab is server. It just gives you some information about what this computer is doing, what's going on with the RIP right now, and how much memory and disk space is left. The next tab is workflow. We have one sub-tab called general. This is the basic information about the name for this workflow, which is the same here. So we're going to go ahead and name this something that makes sense to us. Maybe something like Grayscale coded 1v2 certification. The description can be whatever you want it to be. Workflow for Grayscale 2006 coded 1v2 certification. I could also add information in here about the paper type. Epson, in this case we're going to be using Epson standard proofing paper 240. But you can add the description of what this is, so if anyone else comes by and wants to know what is this workflow all about, they can do it. By the way, as I type things in, you'll notice this icon lights up here. Whenever this icon is lit, it means that a save is required. So if I hit save right now, you'll see that it saves me to date where I'm at, or the steps I've already done. You can see it's already renamed it. The next settings here is for previews. These are jobs that come in and how you preview them within the Job Explorer. Which we'll talk in more detail in another video. I just leave it as the default. Source files is how you want to delete files after they're done processing. You can set these any way you want. And you can also tell it to delete the preview files that get created as well, any way you want. We always end up saying, do not rip and print on the fly. This is an important checkbox, Larry. You know, one of the things we found was that if you wanted to have, let's say, multiple printers connected to the same CPU and same computer, having this turned off works a lot better. Right. As you mentioned earlier in an earlier video, this is actually running a multi-core CPSI or multi-CPSI PostScript 3 RIP, which means we have 4 individual CPSI cores running. Right. Which means I can be processing 4 jobs all at the same time, which is pretty cool. Anything beyond that, it starts to really take a lot of processing power. So I have found that rip and print on the fly off is the best way to go there.
Yeah, we also have a high resolution 1440 by 1440 mode of RIP resolution, and to process a file, complex files, let's say it's 4 color plus spot colors, large page size. When you're processing a file at that resolution, if you want to run rip and print on the fly, you'd have to have a super beefy computer. I mean, you'd have to have the latest, processors, memory, fast drives, and all that to even attempt to do that. So I think your recommendation to just leave that unchecked is probably the best. Good. We don't want the printer pausing, and if the rip and print on the fly can't keep up with the printer, you're going to see a pause in the print. That's your indication. Absolutely.
And the 900 class printers, whether you're using a 7900 or 9900, that new thin film piezo print head, it's so fast. Yep. Even in the 1440 by 1440 output mode, unless you got a really high-end computer, it's hard to keep that machine at full speed. So we recommend to turn that off. I always turn bidirectional on now. The new printhead technology on the 900 series is so good, and the screening technology that EFI's implemented from Epson in this product is so good. I don't see any difference in image quality whatsoever between a bidirectional print or printing in unidirectional. It looks identical, so you might as well leave bidi on, and it's twice the speed.
Yeah, my only comment there, we're setting up a certified workflow. You want to set it and leave it. In other words, we're looking for the optimal color, and so you don't want to be flipping back and forth between UniD and BID. Set up the workflow and remain on that consistent standard, and you're going to get the best results.
So for Workflow General, that's kind of what this does. And again, it's really logical. You just kind of go through these settings and pick the choices that you think are best for your particular workflow. Again, we're building this workflow against the Grayscale coded 1v2 spec. Under Input, we have General. This is where I define where I want my hot folders to be located. We'll have a video dedicated to this on another video. We also have information about remote jobs and how JDF is being taken care of. Under File Formats, this is how file formats that are brought into the RIP are handled. And of course, the guys at EFI support pretty much every file format you can possibly think of. And the really cool thing about the Epson version of this RIP is that we've given you 1-bit file for standard. It's not an option. This is a very expensive option that gives, I think, a truer representation of the press, but we give it to you standard. So just a quick run through on this, how we handle PostScript and PDF files. No recommended changes anywhere in here. Leave everything at the default. We really went through this RIP and made sure the defaults were correct for pretty much 99% of the workflows you're going to get. Nothing to do with EPS and job detection. Again, our settings here are the best for everything that's out there. One thing to note, we have 2 PostScript engines in this RIP. We have Adobe PostScript 3, which I said earlier has 4 versions of CPSI running in parallel, so you can process 4 jobs at the same time. That's a new technology from Adobe that EFI has taken advantage of, which is awesome. By the way, that's also the latest version of CPSI from Adobe. And we also have Adobe PDF Print Engine 2.0. There should be a little 2.0 there, but this is the 2.0 version of PDF Print Engine. And I can turn on whichever PostScript core I want to use or language I want to use to process my data. My recommendation is, unless you're doing a lot of variable data printing or a lot of complex packaging work where you have a lot of spot colors that are defined as transparencies that are overlaying on top of each other, and if you find problems in rendering that information properly with the main Adobe PostScript 3 engine, then go ahead and try ripping that job through Adobe PDF Engine 2.0. Right. That's kind of how I would handle that. What do you think, Larry?
Adobe PDF, I mean, they're both state-of-the-art print engines. Adobe PDF is going to be a little bit slower. It takes a little bit more time in processing as it interprets and tries to figure out those transparencies and layers and some of the other things. Plus, you lose the multi-core technology, so you can only process one file at one time. What I do think is great is if you're having a problem with a particular file, you can try running it against a different workflow, and a lot of times that'll get your file out to proof. Where you may otherwise be struggling. Yeah,
one of our beta sites had that. They had a PDF file that just would not rip properly through CPSI or through other RIPs that don't use Adobe. We took that file and ran it through Adobe PDF Print Engine 2.0, and it ripped beautifully and printed beautifully, got the job out the door. So good point. That's an awesome way of doing it. Again, it's just really cool to know that EFI has the resources and the talent back in Germany to actually be able to implement in a single workflow RIP both types of RIP technology, which is pretty awesome. Right. And again, being partners with Adobe, we're getting the latest technologies here.
Yep. I can cover that next section because it looks like the way it's laid out, it's actually combining or is an addition to the PDF print engine. But that image EPS and PDF print engine, that selection is specific to very defined files that are basically save as single files out of Adobe Photoshop to either an EPS or a PDF format. So for your normal workflow, your normal files that you're running, those aren't going to come into play at all. And it's not that I've got to select some combination of them. It's specific to those file types.
So, image EPS and PDF is an older format, is what you're saying, and it's a format that used to take RIPs forever to rip.
Right.
One of the benefits, by the way, of PDF Print Engine 2.0 is that EFI has found a way to dramatically speed up the processing of these file formats, but the reality is just leave it native and be done.
Well, and plus, if you are working in Photoshop or have something to work with on that file format, you can take the fully layered PSD files, all the layers, all the curves, all the text layers, and just drop it right on the RIP, and it's going to render that. You don't even need to save out as PDF or EPS.
That's true. That's one of the things that's cool about being a true Adobe product from EFI is that we support PSD files as one of the formats. It's pretty hot with all the layers. All right, so 1-bit is a very powerful feature. It's one of the, I think it's going to be one of the hottest versions of reasons why people are going to be wanting to buy this new RIP from Epson and EFI, to be able to handle the separated files, the exact same files that you ripped on the plate setter, sending those exact same files into a hot folder to be combined and to create a finished contract proof that shows the proper dot, the screen angle, the frequency, and everything is just awesome. This is a very expensive technology. It comes standard with our product. Only 2 things we're recommending here to change, leave everything else default, is click these 2 boxes, analyze the file name from left to right, extract color separations from the file header. Check these 2, make sure contract with sharp dots is clicked on, is checked. And that's all you have to think about for the 1-bit. Again, we'll have a separate video on this in more detail and printing 1-bit files. But if you make these settings, when we go to that video, we'll remind you again, but things will be a lot quicker and easier.
In most cases, it'll pick it up. In some cases, you're going to need to basically build that job string name up top that looks a little bit confusing, but that's easy to explain.
TIFFIT is a popular format as well. We have full support of that. And then the Cytec CT guys, we're still making sure we support their file formats as well. So that's everything under input and file formats. Under layout, under job layout, this is how jobs will fall on the paper. All the defaults that we have already set with EFI is perfect. You do not need to change anything. The only thing that you might want to play with is how it lines onto the sheet. Do you want it to fall centered to the top, centered in the middle of the sheet that's defined if it's cut sheet? I typically just kind of go like that, Larry. I don't know if you have any comments or recommendations. Just leave it alone.
That's the fastest print mode. That's basically putting the image data closest to the home position of the printer, and the print head has to travel less if it doesn't fill that sheet. So
and it doesn't waste any media in that mode as well.
No, just be a little bit faster. So yeah.
Nesting, I'm making no changes to nesting because this is a RIP workflow that in my case I've decided not to do anything with nesting, but it's a very simple thing that you can do. We might have a video on that on another day. Step and repeat is also fully supported here, and again I'm not going to turn that feature on for this particular workflow because it's not required. Footer I am going to turn on. The footer is the job ticket information that's printed on the bottom of the proof. And it's a very cool technology that EFI has developed where we can create job tickets and customize them and actually create presets. Right now I have no presets, but I can go ahead and click on job ticket. I can add an image. I can upload a TIFF image. And they have some limitations here on the sizes, 5 by 5 centimeters. By the way, if you're going to upload your own company logo to make it look really good, rasterize the logo. Most people have logos that are EPSs. So open them up in Photoshop, rasterize them at about 2400 DPI before you upload them, because this does not accept an EPS file. It only accepts a raster file. So if you want your logo to look nice and sharp and pretty like a true PostScript EPS would, just rasterize your EPS in Photoshop at a high resolution like 2400 DPI. It's going to be a small size file anyway because the size is small, and then upload it. It'll look great. The job ticket line 1, you have actually 6 lines of information, could be printed on the bottom of every proof. I like to put the job name on, the file format, the file name and date of print I like. I also like to make sure that all 3 of these are checked. I like to know what profile was used, what rendering intent, and what lin file was used. For job ticket 3, I love to have to know whether or not this particular job was printed with a 3-dimensional color correction file. This is EFI's extremely powerful math behind iterative color management, and we'll have a video dedicated to this feature. It's just an awesome part of the product.
Yeah, and if we're setting up a verified, certified workflow here, and in order to do that, we want to create a 3cc file to go along with that. So
and we'll show you how to do that.
Knowing which one is attached is important.
Line 4, I like to put the workflow name. I also like to know what resolution the RIP ripped the job and what resolution the final output was printed at on our printer. All that data shows up there. I actually leave all this stuff the way it is just to see what it looks like when it comes out. And I usually don't actually have anything connected here. I don't know if you have any.
I like to check spot color names. That's going to give me a list of any spot color that was
Cool.
in the job and print that out. And you can do user-defined text. So just as part of training or anything else, I always make all my training candidates type in their name, so when they submit a print, I know who printed it.
Very cool.
Okay.
Now what's nice is after I made all those settings, I can go ahead and hit save and type in a name. And what's great is I can create multiple presets, and then when I come down here, I can just select it and it's done, which is really slick.
I do want to point out the preset doesn't save any changes to the ticket width or font size or any of those things. So that's always a static whatever you set, just as a FYI.
Very cool. Now under color is how this workflow, we still have workflow selected here as you know, so we're working on everything that has to do with the workflow here. And again, as I said earlier in the video, whenever this icon is blue, that means I still have some stuff that needs to be saved to this workflow. That was probably all the settings we made a minute ago. Clicking on that makes it go gray, which means that so far all the changes I've made have been saved into this workflow here. Obviously for color management, one of the key parts of the RIP, color management needs to be on. I am not going to use embedded profiles if available. I'm going to leave that off, which means this RIP will override any embedded profiles that may come in from the files that this RIP will take for this particular workflow. Since this is going to be a Grayscale coded 2006 1v2 certified workflow, I need to select that profile here. This is where I would select my press profile, my output profile, what I'm trying to simulate. What's great is everything you're seeing here today is what we give you for free. All of these output profiles have been already done and fingerprinted and are put into the RIP as default. Of course, you can add your own press profiles or other CMYK profiles you want us to match to. But you may notice that we have the Grayscale coded 2006 1v2 specification output profile already here. Just a note, we also have put in here the swap coded number 3 and swap coded number 5 publication profiles as well. Those are probably 3 of the most important ones right now that a lot of people are working on. So this will be a Grayscale workflow, so we're going to select that. The rendering intent should almost always be absolute colorimetric with paper white. There's a technology in this RIP which we'll talk about during the optimization video, the 3-dimensional color correction video, which will create an awesome optimization of dial-in and color for this workflow, where we'll talk about this a little bit more. But just to give you a very good recommendation here, always use absolute colorimetric with a paper white. And I'll explain why more in detail when we do the optimization. Do not select relative colorimetric here. People will use relative colorimetric sometimes to not have a paper tint, which is what no paper white means. So absolute colorimetric means we're going to put a paper tint down. However, this RIP's got some really cool technology up its sleeve, which we're going to share with you in an optimization video. So you're going to want to use the more powerful or more accurate math behind absolute colorimetric, and we'll still be able to, if you want, not put a paper tint down. And I'll share that with you in another video. This is for information if data comes into the workflow that is RGB based versus CMYK based. I just kind of use sRGB or Adobe RGB.
Yeah, anything that's done for prepress and RGB typically starts out as an Adobe RGB, so that's a good bet.
And I like relative colorimetric with black point. That's a technology that Adobe introduced a while ago with Photoshop, and it looks better than not doing that, so I just select it. Again, if you have anybody doing work with RGB data, there's a problem, so it's probably not necessarily the right file. You probably have to do something with that. But if it does go through, here are the settings that the RIP will use. The same with grayscale information. If grayscale data comes into the workflow, here's how the color management system will handle it. I leave that as a default. And multicolor. If there's multicolor source information defined in a file coming in, again, you can select these settings here for how the RIP will handle it.
Right, so if you do a press profile and you're running hexachrome or you're running more than process color, not counting spot, and you build a profile for that, 6 or 7 colors, then instead of placing it up where Grayscale was placed, you would place that in this multicolor source. That's what that's used for.
Very cool.
And again, absolute colorimetric would be used.
Again, we won't talk into detail on this, but the simulation profile, this is basically if you wanted the Stylus Pro 7900 or 9900 printer, which we haven't added yet. If you want it to match the quality of what we're defining here, but as a different device, this is where you would select it. However, we want to take full advantage of what the 7900 and 9900 can do to match this standard that we're creating, so we're going to have it not simulate anything.
Actually, I would set that to the Grayscale standard that you selected above, and the simulation profiles actually is used also if something comes through with no profile. In other words, the RIP can't determine what it is. It's going to use that simulation profile. So by setting that the same as what you set up top, you're safe. Good way to go, my opinion.
All right, well, we'll do it. Your opinion counts. All right, Convert to Grayscale is a feature that EFI has been talking about with the launch of this new 4.0 platform. We're not going to deal with that. And then lab optimization, color optimization, visual correction, plate compensation is extremely powerful in this RIP. We're not going to go over these in detail here, but this is where we will talk about in another video how you can optimize this workflow and take full advantage of some of the newer technologies like iterative color management and things like that. But this is going to be a pretty powerful feature of the RIP, which we'll show you later.
In order to meet the Grayscale certification, that lab optimization, building that file and placing it in that area is critical. You're going to have it.
Now, the spot color settings, we've made a default with the RIP to handle everything you could ever want. So the recommendation here under spot color is to don't touch it. If files come in with spot colors properly defined, this RIP will know how to search priority for those files and use them properly. If you would like to have it do some other things, like if an unknown spot color comes in, have it auto print as a warning color, you can turn that feature on here. But we'll show you in another video when we print files how you can look at and override some of those problems.
Yeah, I actually prefer unchecked is the best method on that. That way when the job comes in, you'll actually have the ability to control that spot color live and get it to process correctly.
Very cool. All right, so under finishing, we're not going to do any crop marks or anything like that, so that's the only thing there. We're going to leave that alone. Under output, this is some information that's very important. This is how this workflow will handle the output to our printer. How many copies, if you want to sort them, I'm going to leave that alone. How you want the separations to be handled. So I want to merge all separations regardless of the file, whether it's a 1-bit or it's a composite file like PDF or EPS or TIFF. We're going to merge it into a finished print. You can obviously do color separations or separate those separations as individual gray components. But we're going to go ahead and say merge separations and not do an invert. And we're not going to be doing any cropping or anything to fit the media. That's something you probably don't want to do if you want to do a contract proof. Under advanced, you have some settings here about missing dots, defining the first printable dot, and noise smoothing. We have found with the 900 class printers, the only setting you want to ever deal with here is do this. Simply come in here and type in 5% for noise smoothing. It's the best setting. We've tested this about 1 billion times, and we know that is the ultimate setting. So make sure you type in 5 for noise smoothing. That will make sure the RIP will really make sure and ensure transitions and gradients and blends are perfectly smooth with the 900 class printers.
Yeah, and if you're working with a custom press profile, you'll also have information about showing missing dot and define first printing dot on where you want to set that. So.
Under remote, we will talk about remote container and other things like that on another video, but this is how you would set that up for remote proofing. There's a lot of new technologies coming out, not just from EFI, but from other companies where this information and a lot of the data that comes out of this workflow can be uploaded automatically, or containers can be created automatically for remote proofing, web control technology. I mean, it's very, very cool. Again, this RIP is a very high-end product and a really future-proof product for a lot of your printers out there.
Yeah, I just caution people, if you hit it or it's turned on to automatic, it is going to be generating automatically a remote output file that's going to start filling up your hard drive. So if your hard drive space starts decrementing rapidly, you might want to check that setting.
Which is off by default, which is what we're doing here. Okay, in the last tab, is one of the coolest features of the RIP, especially if you've purchased the optional Epson Spectrophroofer. That's our Inline Spectrophotometer. The new EFI RIP, the new ColorProof XF RIP for Epson, has the ability to lay down 2 control strips and then auto read those strips and verify them to different standards. We're actually going to do that in order for this this workflow to be certified. I want to make sure that every print that comes out of this workflow gets verified to its accuracy of this specification. So how we're going to do that is first we're going to tell it to use a control strip. And we have 2 control strips that we can play with. We're only going to turn on 1 for this time. This control strip, these are the wedges and the color bars that you can throw down on the bottom of the print that automatically gets printed after your job is printed. And then, of course, our spectrophotometer would read those colors. We put in by default all the latest Ideal Alliance ISO control strips. And this is a very good one right here. The 12647-7 is the newest one. And that's standard in the RIP. So I'm going to select that.
So notice Mark selected the one with Spectroproofer on it because basically each device has its own size of patch and those type of things. So there's multiple versions of the same target, and you want to make sure with Spectroproofer that you select that target that has Spectroproofer at the end.
And obviously we want to print that target with color management so we can verify it with the color management that's defined in this workflow. It's going to be printed on every page, not every sheet. If you wanted to nest a lot of jobs on a sheet and have one strip printed on just the sheet, that's how that probably would work. Otherwise, it's on every page.
Absolutely.
So we're going to have it on every page. Now, we're not just going to print out the strip because we have purchased the Epson Spectrophotometer, which we call Epson Spectroproofer. We can have it auto-verify this strip in line after the print is done. So that feature now gets turned on. We're going to tell it to use the characterization data of the reference profile that was defined in this workflow. In this case, it is the profile which is defined by Grayscale. It was the Grayscale coded 2006 1v2 ICC. That's the data that's going to be used to reference whether or not this verification passes or fails. You can define and quickly select a custom. This is basically just a preset for all this data down here. I'm going to do a custom one. I'm going to choose the Delta E format that is actually going to be used to calculate pass or fail for this particular verification. And the Ideal Alliance recommends a Delta E 2000 as the math that's used, so we're going to use that format. And then here's the tolerance levels for this particular verification, and I can come in here and type all this in. So the only change I would make from the default one is the average Delta E over patches. 3 is kind of too easy. Maybe if I had a lesser printer than Epson's, I would leave it 3. But since we have a Stylus Pro 9900 with HDR ink, we can hit a lot better tolerances than 3. So we're going to set that to a 1.5 tolerance, which means when this target is printed on the bottom of the proof, and when our spectroproofer automatically verifies that target against this profile with this Delta E process, these colors better hit at these specs. Otherwise, it will create a failure on the job ticket, or actually on the proof label, which we can automatically print. Now, this is why I wanted to show this to you as well. Notice it's grayed out. It's grayed out because I have not yet installed a printer. Once a printer is installed, I'll come back here and turn that feature on so that after it verifies it, it won't just tell me it verified in the RIP interface. It actually will print out the verification label right there on the proof as well, which is the coolest thing ever. So we're not going to do anything in Control Strip 2, only Control Strip 1, and we're going to save that out and we're finished. Now this workflow is completed. I can go ahead and now link it in. Of course, it has nowhere to go once a job hits it. So now we're going to add an output device. Now this will go a lot quicker adding a printer than what we just did. Again, I can add an output device by simply right-clicking and selecting output device, or I can come up here and just click on new output device, and you can see it clicks, goes on. Here it is right here, and again, you can see this area changes. Server is the same as what you saw before, just information about the server. Here's the device setup. I'm going to type in the name of what this output device is, and this happens to be an Epson Stylus Pro, make sure it looks nice, 9900. It's located in our professional imaging lab. I'm going to pull this list down and select the 9900 driver itself. It's very easy to connect it. I have to connect it here by TCP/IP. Good trick for you guys is you should have already saw another video that we described how to install all the normal Epson drivers and utilities, but if you haven't, you can go ahead and just simply install that at this point, and it installs a utility called Epson netconfig. So if you don't know the TCP/IP address of this output device, of this printer located in this area, I can just run my Epson netconfig utility. It'll go out on the network and find the printer. It'll find the IP address for me so I can write that down. So this utility got installed as part of our driver install package that comes standard in every printer. So anyways, the IP address is known. I'm going to quit out of this application. I'm going to type it in here. And I always hit test just to verify that this RIP saw it, and it did, and I am done. Leave everything else there. Under media, we're going to set the media up for, again, to match the Grayscale standard, to be in the certification of the Grayscale standard by the Ideal Alliance. So obviously Ultrachrome HDR is the only ink that printer supports. The media is already pre-profiled and pre-put into the RIP. This is a paper that we've decided to use to be certified by the Ideal Alliance for the Grayscale coded 1v2 spec. So I'm going to select
also
Epson.
In the box.
And it's also in the box. This is the roll we put in the box with every printer, right?
Yep.
Very cool. Then we select the resolution that we want this this printer to print at on that paper. We pre-did 3 of the most used resolutions. The 720 DPI obviously is a very, very fast mode. It's also an extremely high quality mode. This is 1440 by 1440 mode, which is the mode that I'm going to be using for the certification. And the 2080 DPI mode, I would only use that if you were doing 1-bit TIFF type proofs and dot proofs. That higher resolution really does make a difference. So I'll be using the 1440 in and out, and it tells you the information about it. Now, one thing to note, Larry, here, give us a little update on this. Notice that the resolution input's 1440 by 1440. That's new.
Right. That's a very high resolution input mode. In the past, it was either 360 or 720. So it renders line work and text and fonts amazing, but it takes a lot of horsepower to rip to that resolution. So again, we talked about it earlier, if you're going to run at 1440 in, which is what that resolution is for the RIP resolution, make sure you've got a Core 2 Duo, 3 gigahertz or higher, or an i7. This software runs fine on i7 processors, a Xenon quad-core,
Cool.
Something that's going to be able to help you process that file quickly.
Media information here. The media is obviously on a roll versus a cut sheet. And this particular media that we've installed just now that came in the box with the printer is 24 inches wide, so I'm going to go ahead and select that.
Right. Just make a note there. If you have a 7900, not a 9900, you would select 24-inch roll Spectroproofer for that media. It's not going to show up here. We tried to simplify the menus and only show settings that are relevant to the device. Just wanted to make a note of that.
Very cool. All right, so 24-inch, the last button here is special. This area here allows me to turn on an auto linearization and auto calibration feature that's based on a timer. If you have the optional Epson Spectrophotometer installed on this 9900, you can turn this feature on and have the RIP automatically, once a day, once per week, every 2 months, or per month, automatically based on time and a day of the month, automatically verify if the hardware is still within spec. It's pretty awesome.
Right. It's going to run the linearization, check the values on it, and make sure it's still within the delta E that you specify.
So I'm going to turn that feature off, actually, because one of the coolest parts of this product is that I haven't seen a 9900 or 7900 printer ever sway in a long time. I don't think I've ever seen that. So I'm going to turn that off, but if you are worried, or if the printer is old or aging, or you want to make absolute sure that every printer stays within specification, you can just turn that feature on, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it off.
I think if you've got Spectroproofer, there's no reason not to turn that on at least once a week.
All right, let's turn it on.
It's just kind of a no-brainer quick check.
Let's tell it to do it every Wednesday at, I don't know.
No, let's do it. We come in at 8 o'clock, or I come in at 8 o'clock, so I'd set it up for like 7:30.
All right.
All right. It's all military time.
Very good. All right, the cutter, automatic cutter, and the printer dryer, by the way, it's really not a printer dryer. This is the dryer that's built inside of Spectroproofer. The optional Epson Spectroproofer can automatically dry down targets before we read them in. But if you're using Epson genuine proofing media, one of the benefits of using Epson media is you don't have to have the dryer on at all. So there's a lot of RIPs out there, a lot of medias out there that are used in our printers. Some of those medias require, they don't dry as fast as the Epson genuine line of proofing media, so you may have to turn on a dryer and set the number of minutes before it reads all this data in. With Epson genuine media, you set this to 0, the dryer never comes on. The moment we make a print, we start reading in the color. All right, so now we're basically done setting up the printer. I'm going to go ahead and notice that, again, it's color. I'm going to hit save. It asks me for a media set. This is because we have the ability later in the RIP to reference this setting in the Job Explorer utility, which we'll talk about in another video. So I'm going to go ahead and say this is Grayscale certified.
Yep, I'd add 1440 to it because this is basically a the resolution is important.
Now I'm going to go ahead and turn these two on, drag the line. And you may notice now that if I go to this workflow and go to color, or I'm sorry, verify, as I go down to here, you can see now I can print the label. I want that turned on.
Yep.
Again, any setting I make, I have to remember to come over here and click on this. If I don't and click off of it, it'll ask me, do I want to make changes?
Yep.
Changes have been made. Do you want to save it and hit yes?
Sure.
So I always remember to always make sure that's always gray. Now, at this point, we are done, and we can start printing, but notice these are red. I have found you really should just go ahead and just turn these on and make sure that linearization device and the actual printer output device you've added match. Right. So under linearization device, if I come under device and go under media, under setup, I want to make sure all this matches. So I'm going to select the 9900 again.
Actually, can I give you a quick shortcut?
Do it.
Okay, so just go back to your Stylus Pro 9900. Okay, right click on it. Okay, select linearized device. That's going to copy the settings that you have. It's also going to launch Color Manager, but basically I can just exit out of Color Manager and then all my settings are exactly the same. I'm done. Okay, so without having to manually enter anything, I've got all my settings.
Very cool.
All right,
learn something new every day. Awesome.
Then you're consistent, no issues.
So at this point, we have completed this video. We added a workflow that will allow you to create verified, true certified proofs on a Epson 9900 using our new standard proofing paper 240 that comes in the box with the printer. This workflow will produce very color accurate proofs, and we will show you in another video, which is our video on how to optimize this workflow and optimize these two items so that it even gets even better. But at this point, you could start making prints and proofs that will be extremely tight. In fact, you'll be creating proofs with this workflow right now that are probably better than anything that's ever come before.
Yeah, I still think that, as we'll talk about in the future video, the creation of that 3cc or three-dimensional color correction file to really optimize color is critical and important in a verified workflow. So that's one thing that we will add later on. But as Mark said, right now you'll get insanely accurate color.
Okay, so that's it for this video. We hope to see you in the next one.